So today we're going to be talking about right triangle trig. There's three trigonometric functions that we're going to focus on here in geometry, and that's sine, cosine, and tangent. You won't have to write those out each time. They do have abbreviations. This one looks like sin, cos, and tan. They are pronounced sine, cosine, and tangent. Okay, and we use these three functions to solve for missing parts of right triangles when one side or an angle or two sides and looking for an angle. But remember, it does have to be a right triangle. That's what big key word there. It has to be a right triangle. So I'm going to draw a right triangle over here to get you started and show you how these work. Okay, so we have our right triangle. Okay, you're going to have a reference angle. We're going to use theta to represent that. Theta is this Greek symbol, just a circle with the line through it. And so from whatever angle you're looking for, we'll call your theta, you're going to label the three sides of the triangle. Okay, you're going to have an opposite side, so wherever your angle is, opposite that angle. Okay, adjacent. Remember, adjacent means next to. Okay, and then of course across from your 90-degree angle is always your hypotenuse. Alright, so when we're talking about sine, cosine, and tangent and what they are, there's actually a ratio of side lengths of the right triangle. So the value for the sine of the triangle would be opposite over hypotenuse. The ratio for cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, and the ratio for tangent is opposite over adjacent. Now you're probably thinking, how on earth am I going to remember all of this? So what you're going to do, there's a couple of little memory tricks. You may remember this from algebra, SOHCAHTOA. Okay, this stands for sine, cosine, tangent. Okay, opposite over hypotenuse, adjacent over hypotenuse, or opposite over adjacent. Okay, another memory trick I like to use, which you probably haven't heard before, is Oscar had a heap of apples. And if you look at the order of our letters, it's O-H-A-H-O-A. Oscar had a heap of apples is just a mnemonic device that you can use. So if you want to use that, you may. Okay, so you can use either one of these memory tricks to help you remember it. Okay? Alright. Alright, so once we've got these ratios, alright, so using that to solve for some missing pieces of triangles. So go ahead and draw yourself a right triangle. And it does not always have to be in this direction. I know I've drawn it in this direction, but just so you can see it going from other directions, it doesn't matter where your right angle is. There we go. Alright, so if this is our right angle, okay, and we're asked to solve for angle x, okay, we need to be given some sort of information. You have to have at least two pieces, either an angle on a side or two side lengths. So in this one we're looking for the angle, and we're given two side lengths. So I'll tell you that this is 9 and that this is 17, okay, and we don't know this side. So what you're going to want to do is first identify your opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. That's always going to be your first step. So from your given angle, or the angle that you're missing, opposite, adjacent, hypotenuse. So here's x that we're looking for. What do we know about x? Do we know the adjacent? No, no information. So we can't use adjacent. Okay, so we're not going to use that. Okay, what we are going to use are the two that we're given, which is the opposite and the hypotenuse, so O and H. So if you remember the ratio of O to H, that is your sine function. So when you set this up, it's sine of your angle is the opposite side over the hypotenuse. Okay, So see, you have 3 pieces. 1, 2, 3. You need to know at least 2 of these pieces. Okay, in our case we know O and H. We're looking for X. Okay, so when we plug in, our opposite side is 9. Our hypotenuse side is 17. Okay, you could go ahead and reduce this fraction if possible, but you don't have to. We can solve this all in one step to make it a little simpler. So what you're going to do now is to get the X by itself. Okay, so here, this is what we're trying to get by itself. So sine here needs to move to the other side. Okay, now to do that, okay, to get the X by itself, the sine comes over here and becomes what we call the inverse sine, and we use this little -1 exponent symbol to represent that. That reads inverse sine. Okay, so the inverse sine, because it switched sides, became inverse sine of our ratio, which is 9/17. So now, once you have that set up, you have your X all by itself. We want to solve for it. So in your calculator, okay, first of all, you're going to hit mode on your calculator. Right here is the sine, cosine, and tangent buttons. And if you notice in yellow above it, for the second commands is inverse sine, inverse cosine, and inverse tangent. So we're doing inverse sine. So you'll hit second sine. Okay, a parenthesis will automatically open when you hit any of these trig functions. So the parenthesis will automatically appear, and you'll do 9 divided by 17, and then close that parenthesis and hit enter. Simple as that. Okay, and you'll end up getting a decimal.